Welcome back, friends and foes. Today, I want to go back to painting my OG army. I know I said that in a previous video that the Space Wolves were the first ones that I collected, but the real army that locked in my love for 40k was the Orkz. Way back at the beginning of 9th edition, when I was so excited and overwhelmed and hyped to dive into this weird and wild world of Warhammer, I managed to find someone kind enough to teach me the game. Take my greasy mitts and lead me through. I finally collected all my Marines, even allied in an Imperial Knight, had a couple of painted units, it was hype. Then, my opponent shows up with the Orcs, the Greenskins, hordes of hooligans, Storm Boys flying into the deployment zone, exploding on the way in, a Gorgonaut charging into me, opening its belly doors and having the Burner Boys spill out. I was immediately in love. The fact that I can remember specific moments from a game that happened something like 4 years ago says a lot. So I immediately sold off all my Space Wolves, bought the old Combat Patrol, and raided eBay for about 80 secondhand boys. We were in deep. Now a few years later, I have right around 6,000 points of Orcs, and about 90% of them painted. Really, the only thing I have left to paint is about 50 boys. So I thought this would be a good time to dive back into my beloved brutes and share how I like to paint them. I've got a couple of boys here. I want to give you all a few different options with some pros and cons. Luckily, my orcs are of the freebooter variety, and messing around with the paints here won't be a problem. I like a hodgepodge mix of all different colors and such. The big thing we're going to get into today is how to paint orc skin. We'll be working with the classic GW method, slap chop, underpainting, and just normal painting. I'm not sure if there's any fancy internet lingo for it, but anyway, you'll see it in a minute. As we get these guys started, I also want to just clarify that there's no wrong way to do this. We're just comparing the options here. Also, I just want to throw it out there that I tried to paint all these at the same tabletop level. I really tried not to pick any favorites by spending more time on one or doing extra work on another. It's all basically base coats, then highlighting the skin. So we have to take Mr. Slapchop and underpaint here and separate them. Slapchop is getting dry brushed. I'm sure you guys have seen a million videos by now, so I'll keep it quick. You dry brush it with a light gray, then a white, slide them off to the side. Mr. Underpaint, I'm going to grab my Vallejo Violet here and cover him. So we have a great and deep shadow color here that we're going to have a great contrast with our bright green skin. Okay, off to the side with you. Then let's get into the real deal painting now. I think we should start with the Games Workshop method, the Citadel method, that everyone knows and about 90% of us mini painters will start off with. We're going to start out with the base coats. I like my orcs nice and bright, so we need that skin popping off. Aside from that, my orc color choices are pretty simple. Some metal colors, some leather colors on the boots and the pants, and then it's time for the Citadel signature technique of cover everything with wash and then bring it back up. I'm not going to pick favorites straight away here, so I'll do it right. I like Pro Krill paints, so I'm using their black wash, like Nuln Oil, on the metals, brown wash, like Agrax Earthshade, on the leather and cloth bits, and flesh wash, like Reikland Fleshshade, on the skin. After that dries, we have to bring our colors back up. The only difference here is that I want to start mixing in a little yellow into our green to get that rich highlight that doesn't lose any of our color saturation. Now the pros here. There are highlights. Building up your base colors, and washes work well in all the tiny details, and it feels like a cheat code when you first start out. The cons, the washes will tint the entire model for better or for worse. Also, it feels like you have to paint the whole model twice by bringing back those colors. Next up, we have our friendly neighborhood Slapchop. You know the deal here, contrast paints, speed paints all over. The pros, speed, and it doesn't take much thought. The cons, there's lack of control in the paint and highlighting in speed paints. On to the next funny little green man. Let's paint this fella with the underpaint. Here we are essentially just building up our base colors to highlights. The big thing here though is to use those shadows. You don't want to do this whole first step and then just cover up the purple everywhere. Making sure again to add some yellow into our green to add the real deal contrast to the violet shadows. The process is simple enough here, and honestly this is the same method I did in my last video about your first mini, so we could just move on. Pros, easy color theory. The cons, maybe you want something a little bit more grimdark, though I'd recommend colors in the shadows for that too, so I'm not too sure. On to our last guy here, and it's a really simple process. Like I said before, I like my orcs bright, cartoonish even. So I'm going to grab something like moot green and work up those highlights with a golden yellow. Same stuff as before, but letting our original base color be the color that stays in the recesses. We're starting out at our darkest point and working up brighter and brighter. Solid, saturated colors are the goal. Now, after we work our way all around the little fella, here let's dive into some stuff I haven't mentioned yet. Painting old, beat up, weathered weapons the easy way. Now, weathering is fun because it can be as intricate or as simple as you want it to be. These are just some boys, so we're going to keep it pretty simple. We'll dive into more advanced rust adventures in the future. For now, we're just going to dry brush on some brown over the metal bits, then our chosen metal color. It's actually that easy. It works so well because the brown will stay in the recesses and give it an aged and rusted look. After that, I'm going to just put a little bit of rust on the metals using Army Painter Fanatics Technical Paint. Love this stuff. First we use the darker brown and then the orange in the deeper crevices where there's going to be more water collected and more damage. Now there's one more detail that I kind of recently started adding to my orcs, but it took them up about 10 notches I think. We must paint some lips. They deserve it. So here we do a little blend up with Emperor's Children pink. Now, as you can see, this junk makes the orc face pop. Going to also add a little bit of this on some choice parts for our boys. Inside the ears, knuckles work great, elbows, scars. You can do as much or as little as you want with this. If you know the orcs, they never have just iron colored armor and whatnot. There are different orc clans and cultures that have different colors to represent them, such as the Goths wearing black, Evil Sons wearing red. I mentioned in the beginning that I'm a fan of the freebooters. They are the outcasts of the weirdo orc society and tend to be a mismatched group of pirates. 10 out of 10. On top of these guys being amazing orc pirates, this also lends itself well to just not giving a hoot about heck and just painting them however I want with big, bright, bold colors. Now for the actual method. I use The Method, made famous by Scratch Bashing on YouTube. I'll link one of his videos here. The guy is an absolute kit bashing wizard. But now for the method. You see these panels and plates that make up anything that the orcs build. Just don't touch the edge with your chosen color. That's it. Just don't touch the edge. It comes out amazing every time. For all of this metal that looks like it was glued together by some freak years ago and has seen 100 battles since then. Now the pros, by the way, for this painting method. Big, bright, saturated colors. And you get a lot more control in your painting style here, with highlights and shadows and all that. The cons? I don't mean to be biased, but I'm not sure if there are any. But anyway, last but not least, we have our orky bases. Goblin green, of course, with a little bit of yellow on top. Simple, elegant, chef's kiss. And then now onto the spinny shots. And here we have all of our options. Which one's your favorite? I think all of them could work, but it mostly depends on the goal. But for speed and quality, I think I'd drop the GW method and the slap chopping. But I'm also very biased. Anyway, let me know, you freaks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and all of that is mega appreciated. Also, come hang out with me on Twitch, where I stream 3 times a week over at twitch.tv/drinkyourpaintwater live. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.